I'm so glad we have this time together. What's up, family? Welcome to another episode of today's Consciousness in the Conscious Community. And we're going to go for a spin this time around the universe when it comes to consciousness, because as the dictionary always says, of course, and I'll read it verbatim, conscious is means aware of and responding to one's surrounding and awake and awake. And consciousness is the state of being awake and aware of one's surroundings. Okay, just basic meaning. So consciousness is not a community per se, but it's like a state of mind of basically knowing your surroundings and being aware. So we're going to come from a whole nother level with this brother that I've had on my show before. He's even spoken at one of my venues in Brooklyn back time. And of course, he has helped me to be my best self in this numerovational process that I've developed through numerology, an innovative way to motivate people with numbers. And I'm so happy to have this brother that's about to come on. And of course, just want to remind, before I bring him on, I just want to remind everybody, this is a troll-free zone. So trolls, please take a stroll somewhere else, okay? Trolls, please take a stroll somewhere else. We ain't got no time for that. You know, I ain't going back and forth with you. Living my best life. I ain't going back and forth. All right. I don't do that. All right. And I want to remind everybody that coming up next on this Friday, we have Dr. Shakira Moore. Of course, it's important to know your breast blueprint because early detection saves lives. We're in the month of breast cancer awareness month. So we want to make sure we support our sisters. And of course, Dr. Shakira Moore from a holistic iridology perspective will be on. Of course, she got an event coming up on the 21st. I want to make sure I shout that out. And next on today's consciousness, on the 28th, we have the one, the only Dr. Oyama, who's into STEM and all of that, beautiful women, but she's also a part of the internal parts of the consciousness of the community. And after that, we have our dear sister Myra Moss, astrologer extraordinaire, tarot. She's been a legend in this since Bobby Hemmett and Dr. Delbert Blair. She's going to be, I just confirmed her today. Can't wait. But this weekend, I have my brother Zenset Jejna, the journey of spiritual and being the keeper of ancestral guidance. And I have another elder coming in live and direct, the one, the only, the same day, but later on that afternoon, the one, the only brother, Jerry Miller, will be with us. And this one is called Respecting the Wisdom of Our Elders Woven in the Fabric of Time. All happening on that one day. And of course, y'all know I got my 30th celebration and promotion and production happening at Nicholas for 2 days. November 15th and 16th is going to be live and direct. So make sure y'all tune in. It's going to be powerful. And I want to see y'all in the place. Of course, Abundance Child and Blue Pill are the keynote speakers. Blue Pill is doing Sunday as a keynote, and Abundance Child will be the keynote for Saturday. But I have Lloyd Strayhorn coming through, Joshua Sarah, Paris Williams, Mama Ella, Black Dot, and so much more. People said they're coming through just to say a few words and show your brother some love after 30 years in this promotion. And of course, doing the sound bowls will be the one, the only Sister Kafunya Ife will be doing the sound bowls. So I'm elated, and I know everybody's going to have a good time. So of course, I got this coming up on my Patreon, Psychoanalysis, a numerovational, spiritual, and physical perspective, exclusively on my Patreon and my King Simon Presents or KSP Media membership. All right. So without any further ado, the brother that I'm about to bring up here for you is not only a dear friend, but also a teacher. And, you know, a lot of people don't know that this man at one time wasn't into astrology, but after studying astrology for over 25 years, including first as a skeptic, of course, he discovered a few problems people commonly have with it. Of course, we're going to talk about that, but astrology often astrologers often make astrology hard to understand and too impractical for issues in this life. And he came to clear a lot of that up. Believe me, he does that, and he keeps it simple. And of course, if you go to his website, which we're going to be talking about, and it's pinned to the top of the chat. Family, let me show that website on the page before I bring him on, so we'll know that all of this stuff is here. All right. So yes, make sure y'all support him. It's pinned to the top of the chat. You can email him at unlockastrology@gmail. Also, his website is unlockastrology.com, and his Instagram is SF Reynolds. Without further ado, I want to welcome on my stage, not for the first time, but he's been here before, but a good brother, man, doing great things in great ways. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
How you doing, brother? Always.
You always do it up, man. I gotta say, you've created quite a production.
Thank you.
In terms of the headliners and the folks you have coming on. Some people completely new. Some people I do know, like Queen Kafunya.
Yes.
So, shout out to her. It's been a long time since I've seen her in the days of the Zodiac Lounge.
Exactly.
But yeah, it's great to be back. Great for you to have me. I joked. Well, I don't know if it's a joke, but I said to you, I'm like, I don't know if I belong to the conscious community. And do I? I mean,
in definition, we all belong to it.
in definition, right?
But not the community.
And I also have belonged to it. Maybe that's another way to also think of it.
Right.
For those who know me, know of me, who may even have their own questions. But yes, it's definitely, you've hit a good topic, and I have some thoughts to share. Would love to hear what you have to share. Like, Scorpio sun, so I'm already going to go in for it, right? Maybe one thing we could frame for this, because I've been doing this for 34 years, going on 35 years. And when I say doing this includes both being a skeptic and studying astrology, and then the transition to becoming a practitioner, which is probably more over the last 22, 23 years. And what I would wonder about for you, for me, as a way to start framing this conversation related to the conscious community and other things, rather than, we're not going to hear the gossip or talk about random people or whatever. What do you think testifies to your longevity doing this work? You're going to be doing 30 years. I've been doing, 34 years, including the studying and all that. So it might be even longer for you. But what do you think you can attribute to your longevity? You, brother. So it's Amara's day. So yeah, here we go. Can hear you.
I'm on my phone.
You're on your phone? You had to go through your phone?
Go through my phone.
Okay.
It's all right.
I'm glad you worked it out. I'm glad you learned to work it out. You adapted.
Yeah, I'm going to turn this down. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Good.
So I'm gonna shut up. We can come back to my question.
No. Go ahead. Ask the question.
Well, my question was, what do you think attests to your longevity in this work?
And I said it was love for people, and also knowing that people can come together. Because I grew up in the nightclub life, and my father opened up a nightclub the year I was born. So in Brooklyn, New York, so in Crown Heights. So I've been in the business of people for years. Matter of fact, all my life, put it like that. All my life.
Yeah. Do you think there's anything else?
Well, as far as consciousness is concerned?
Well, consciousness. Well, the reason why I asked this question,
right,
is if we're talking about what happens in the conscious community, and I'm going to ask you, I mean, it was brilliant that you gave a definition of consciousness, but I also think we should ask, what does it mean to have this conscious community? Who belongs to it? Does Van Jones belong to it? Right? Or, does Candace Owens belong to it? So you get my point. But what I've observed, there are some people who belong to it, as you and I might designate it, and there are some people who have belonged to it, but are no more. Not so much through death, but messing up, or not being prepared, or any number of reasons I could go into, and I have some things outlined. So I was just curious. I think love is a big part of it. I think you both have to love what you do. I think you also really have to love people, or want to love people. And I think that's big, because I think some people love being right more than they love people. They love sounding knowledgeable more than they love people. And I'm not just talking about our people, but even people. We can start with our people. And I think we should always start with our people. But I think a lot of people, I'm not even going to say just love themselves, they love an effect or image of themselves more than their people.
It's you would say that's like ego driven, negative ego driven.
Yeah.
So in this new age of it, this new woke age, I would say that has happened, because I've been around since the 70s, since the 5% nation, since the Ansar law, since the, and all that is, all the organization which you would consider conscious or woke at that time, but it's now it's different, because now they have words for it, and then they've created fictitious communities around it. There is no conscious community. No, I just did that. I put that on my flyer and my template, because people feel that they're conscious, because you might go to Gaia, and that's a form of consciousness. You might go to forbidden knowledge, and there's a form of consciousness there. That's why I put it on, because I can invite all types of people on from different communities.
Yeah, but at some point, now
Yeah.
when I was more quote unquote active, as I might describe it, in the conscious community,
Right.
this would be the 90s into the the 90s.
Exactly.
And just for people's background on me, what are your credentials other than you being an astrologer? I also have 2 degrees in African American studies. So one of them is from Malifa Keita Asante's Temple University African American Studies program, the same program that has graduated Danny Black, that has also graduated Greg Carr, and these are seminal thinkers. I'm going to cast shade, because this is what I do sometimes, right? I think it's important for people to know this. It also helped produce Eddie Glaude. Eddie Glaude was a co-student, a fellow student of mine in that African American Studies program. The funny thing is, he never mentions any of that. Now he's at Princeton, and a noted scholar, frequently on MSNBC, and we're not hating him for that. It's just like, how come you don't mention that you also went to Temple? I think you got a master's degree. I mean, he may have. I don't know if he finished. But we were all in the master's and PhD program. So I, and I was in Philadelphia, and so I used to go see Obatala Priestess, Iyanla Van Zant.
Yes.
And this is before, you probably remember too, this is before Iyanla became Iyanla in terms of the show and everything else.
Exactly.
And also hosted Maulana Karenga. I've also hosted Farrakhan. I've attended the lectures of Dr. Ben, Phil Valentine. So we I know the folks, and I think we considered ourselves a conscious community because it was smaller. You know, it wasn't just about, there was no social media.
Right.
You either were hooked in and, you know, knew that you would have to go to, like, if you're in Brooklyn, that you would have to go to the Brooklyn campus downtown, to
Yes, right.
see lectures.
LIU.
LIU, exactly. Thank you. You have to go to LIU to catch the lectures, or maybe the Gladfelter Hall if you're in Philadelphia. You know, you just kind of had to be in the network, in the know. Things are different now, to your point.
Yes.
You know, so I do think there is a different conception of the conscious community, but I think we're still facing some of the same issues.
Yes, that is true. We are still feeling the same issues. It's just that even when Dr. Clark and Dr. Ben had a disagreement, they kept it amongst themselves. You know, even when you know, people might have philosophical disagreements at UAM, they kept it amongst themselves with Alton Maddox and the whole crew over there back in the day. They kept it amongst themselves. But now that we got what we call the social media, now everybody's throwing it out on Front Street. Everything is, I mean, they're dishonoring a lot of the elders for the work that they did at their time instead of just adding on.
Right.
Instead of just building it. Okay, they may have made a few mistakes here and you might want to correct it, but you don't have to disrespect or call them this and call them out of their name and all that while they're in the grave. That don't make sense to me, because if you disrespect your elders, one day when you become an elder, you will be disrespected also.
That's
like,
true.
What they call karma. I'm sorry. Hold on.
Oh, that word needed to be reverberated somehow.
Everyone, hold on 1 second. Let me get rid of that.
Echo. I don't know what's going on. Let me see. I don't have anything else on. Okay, there we go.
I know that.
Okay. Be patient, y'all. Please be patient with me.
Now,
God is not through with me yet. So
can you
you were
hear me?
singing some songs. Yeah, I can hear you fine. Thank you.
I sounded like P Funk for a minute there, you know.
Right?
Big up to George Clinton, the great ones. What I wanted to really delve into with you is, you know, they like to call what we do as New Age, astrology and numerology and all this, like, as New Age, because of course there was a dawning of a New Age. Of course, we already know that, but it was before even the New Age of Aquarius as it came in. It was already existing before that. But what have you seen from your time in this? Have you seen a lot of people now coming to understanding or wanting to understand these metaphysical science, or these the science of astrology in this day and time more than they did back in the days of Christendom heavy back in those days? Do you see that from your studies?
There are layers to your question, and so there are going to be layers to my answer. First, in terms of history, there have been multiple calls of it, what's called a New Age, especially in the last 200 years. You know, in terms of the 19th century, and we have to contextualize this. This has largely been the quote unquote New Age for Europeans, and mostly for Americans, but also colonialists, i.e. Britain, France. And so the permutations of what we call, or what they call, a New Age rests largely on them discovering the spiritualist movement, which is kind of more the first advent of it, even before they started referencing the age of Aquarius. I mean, that's a whole other conversation that, you know, if time permits, I can get into. But so that was the 19th century. And then we have the arrival of theosophical thought, which really is centered on a mixture of evolutionary thought from Darwin,
right,
matched with racism, mostly against us and darker skinned people, if we're talking about Blavatsky.
right,
And then the other aspect of it is the colonialist discovers as they were making it in parts of Egypt and in other parts of Africa and India. So between those three things, that becomes the advent of a new age, and theosophy allows for the blueprint of what becomes the characteristics of much of what's called New Age in the 20th century.
Right.
So it's not singularly that, but that it was a lot of that.
Mhm.
So we have to acknowledge those tributaries before we kind of say like, oh, is it more so than, you know, the early days of Christendom?
Right.
I'll say this first and then I'll go back. What I'll say first is I think there's been a proliferation, and maybe this has been your experience too, of folks interested in things like astrology, numerology, even, you know, more newer forms like human design.
Right.
But I think many folks are more interested in monetizing it than just kind of dedicating their lives to it and study.
Mm. That's right.
And that's very different than what it was or has been in the days of Christendom, which I'll say, just for convenience sake, we can say really surfaces as the 1300s, 1400s, until now.
Mm.
And the reason why I make that distinction, the resurrection, or even what we could call the Renaissance of Christendom, really starts between two poles of Italy and then also into Spain. And that commences with dun 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 the driving out of the Moors,
Yes.
right? And so that became the ascendance of what we now know as Christendom. And even then, what we see clearly is that they being the Europeans in this Christendom that we're talking about, relied heavily on the scholarship, the thought, the ponderous thoughts of Moors. You know, whether we're talking about from Baghdad to Mali to Andalus in Spain, all those particular, or Sicily in Italy, all of these were, you know, seen as bedrocks of learning and places of learning and translations of Greek and Roman thought that the Europeans really had lost access to. And so the Renaissance really becomes about them translating from Latin what had been translated from Arabic or Farsi, in terms of the Moors.
Mm-hmm.
And that becomes critical to realize because their Christendom, you know, and even understanding more of their texts arrived more from due to us as Moors.
Right. Right.
And so that becomes more the advent of their age, you know, because when we always have to be, you know, sharp when they mention, well, when the world was in the dark ages. No, no, no. When you were in your dark age,
Exactly.
the rest of the world had light. We were fine. It was you. And it was Europe. I
Mhm.
think, you know, when we talk about the commencement of a new age, that's the issue. Now, let me go back to where I was, and then I'll come back
Right.
to this, and then I want to hear more of your questions. But
Right.
the difference I would say between new age and interest now isn't just the commercialization. I find it very topical and not and superficial
Mhm.
as versus there was a depth of study, you know, in previous eras, even up until the early 20th century. And the reason why I'm being so hard on it,
Right.
just as a contrast to, you know, talking about our conscious eras. You know, you take someone with the work of Yosef Ben Yochanan, right? Or someone, Godfrey Higgins with Anacalypsis, or you talk about, he wasn't black, but, you know, a lot of people draw on his work. Or you talk about any of the number of the conscious scholars. They actually wrote books, went to conferences, shared information, whether it was right or wrong, but they did their research and they were independent researchers. Now we just have influencers. We have people who generally share information, but I'm like, where did you get that? How do you know that? and we're not necessarily publishing books. You know, one beloved member of the conscious community is Hakim Madhubuti, the poet, who also, you know, published and was a publisher and has been a publisher.
Right.
And his love of books, you know, in terms of publishing, you know, Blueprint for a Black Planet, all these other particular things become significant in laying the groundwork of how I think and how I've approached things.
Yeah.
But we could see the documentation. Now, no
Yeah.
one really needs to see the documentation. Just like, well, someone said it on you. I saw it on YouTube. You know,
Yep.
here's a 3-hour video.
Yep.
and we don't see the scholarship anymore.
Yeah.
So my thought is, in terms of the difference in the new age, I think this new age, if we can put it that way, you know, just putting in scare quotes, is probably more about, you know, some aspects of the commercialization, being an influencer, and not about that sense of service and commitment, or that discipline. You know, one thing I was thinking about with you, just knowing the little bit that I know, because I didn't know you were in the Ansar community. I knew you were in the Nation. I knew that you were a 5%er. But you're like, okay, so, you know, Brother Simon has been in a lot of different things. But here's the thing I've always seen about you. There's been discipline.
Yes.
There's been structure.
That's
right? And a lot of people who come into the conscious community or become influencers, what I can see is, yeah, it's okay to be an autodidact, but they haven't had any teachers. Autodidact is, you know, self-instructed, but they
Right.
haven't had any teachers, and then by virtue of that, they haven't had to follow any other discipline,
Right.
or
Exactly.
structure.
Exactly.
And I think that leads to a paucity of understanding, because you don't even know what you don't know.
That's true. That is true. That is true. Can you still hear me? You all right?
I can hear you. Yeah, I'm just looking at what folks say. I know
Oh yeah.
someone's already asked about the age of Aquarius. I'll
Yeah,
weigh in on that, which if you let me. But you know,
I know.
people are not gonna like. They're not gonna like my answer.
Yeah, and I go, yeah, okay, because they ask it. Do you want to answer that immediately? You want to answer that right now? I don't mind. We can
Okay,
go.
and then we can go into whatever you want me to do.
Go ahead. He said, they're asking me. So Simon, you also agree that we are officially in the age of Aquarius? I'm in and out of that, but let Sam answer that. Brother Samuel answer that, please. Go ahead.
Technically, we're not. Technically, we're about 400 years from the age of Aquarius. And let me briefly explain why.
Please.
And I'm using the word technically because there's a technical definition of it, but there can be more of an approximate, or we could say, you know, a different measure we can use that many astrologers use. So I don't spend too much time trying to debunk it as much as, you know, go with the technicality. The technicality comes from a very specific thing. So there's something called the precession of the equinoxes, which is acknowledging that the Earth, I have it right in my hand, really has a gangster lean, right?
Right.
And what happens by virtue of its orbit around the sun, it develops a wobble, especially from north to south in relation to the pole star, not just in relation to the equinox, but also the pole star. So that's going to change as well. But the equinox is when the sun is aligned with the equator, which we generally in the West, I put that in quotes too, celebrate at the time of Aries. And that we celebrate related to the sign of Aries. But the constellation hasn't been, you know, in terms of the beginning of spring, hasn't been in the sign of Aries for, you know, 1800, 1900 years. So it's been in the sign of Pisces. So it's right now, in terms of the sign and then related to the constellation, it's the Cinetic, what's called the Cinetic vernal point, the actual position for the beginning of the vernal equinox is about 5 degrees of Pisces. This is where we get our understanding related to the sidereal zodiac, these other things. Now, that means that every 72 years, that particular position is going to change and go back, precede 1 degree. So if it's at about 5 degrees, you can imagine that's going to be 400 years about. So when we have the alignment at 29 degrees and 59 minutes of Pisces, because remember I'm sorry, Aquarius, because remember it's going back. That's when we have the official age of Aquarius, technically. Now, some will argue that we've entered more the age of Aquarius, maybe even from the industrial age. So, in terms of the late 19th century. But, and some say it started in the 60s, on one particular date where we had like
the song.
There were like 8 planets, 1963 or something like that. We're like 8 or 9 planets in Aquarius. So some will say that as the starting point, but the technical definition of the great ages relates to the vernal point. Okay. So that lasts 2,160 years. And we are just, like I said, 1,700 or near close to 1,800 years into Pisces. And we have a little more to go. So that's the technical definition of it. The thing to also say that people may ask related to that, like, well, isn't that a big deal? This is where it gets really, you have to be astute as a student of history.
Right. Making
a big deal of the great ages is something that really started in the 20th century, and looking at history retrospectively. There's no clear evidence that as we moved through the different ages, whether we're talking about going in from the age of Taurus to Aries and from Aries to Pisces, that they were focused on those ages that way. We just kind of see it that way. It's kind of like, oh, well, just think about what happened in the wilderness with the Israelites. They were worshiping the bull, which was from the age of Taurus, and they should have been worshiping or dealing with the ram.
Right. Right.
Well, we can get into history and questions about that, because I'll just say this, and people can look this up. Don't take anything I say at my word.
Exactly.
You can go to Wikipedia, which is dubious, but you can go to Wikipedia. You can look at whatever you want to look at. But what I'll say is this: if we want to talk about history and myth, those are two different things.
Yeah.
And the myth of the Israelites, and this is important, especially with what we're dealing with in Palestine. The myth of the Israelites wandering from the desert in Egypt, from Egypt to the desert, and then coming upon Jericho. We can't find that in history. Archaeologists can't find a mass exodus of some people from Egypt into a wilderness. Now, I know what the Quran says, right? But they haven't found it,
right,
in terms of history. Now, why is that important related to Palestine? What they have found, and I remind Zionists about this all the time, what they have found is that you always coexisted with people in the land that you call Palestine. You just didn't come from nowhere. You were there.
Right.
And I think that's important to recognize. So when we talk about the great ages, like, well, look at the calf, the golden calf. That's their story. No one else documents it. And the Egyptians, they honored more than just a bull. They honored, a whole array of gods.
Right.
And especially, Sotpet, in terms of, what we call Sirius and her heliacal rising. So it's a lot more complicated. And, Europeans like to simplify things and like, oh, well, we have the great ages as testimony for what's happening with, human history. And it's not always as clean as that.
But,
all right. I don't know what folks are going to say about that. Let's see.
saying something. Somebody said very, very, very interesting. In my studies, I've based a lot on Uranus sciences, and
Not, yeah, I'm not sure what he means by that, or they mean.
yeah,
Sciences. I mean, that could be related to uranium. I'm not sure, but yeah.
And then he asks, I don't disagree with you, brother. The deserts were water before. I don't see that happening again anytime soon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I live in one. I live in one that's an ocean. I'm serious. New Mexico was, most of the Southwest was an ocean.
Mm-hmm.
You can still see remnants of it. But anyway, what questions do you have planned for me?
I got more questions. Yes, sir. Sam, I mean, that's what I love about you, because you not only study the myth, you study the history to see how everything could correlate. Because it's just because the myth is like people carrying their rituals and traditions with them. That's basically it. So when I remember we was at Nicholas one time and you spoke and you showed and broke it down how astrology and astronomy was once one and the same.
Mm-hmm.
Before they separate. Now, for my new audience, please explain that, because we got people like, you know who I'm talking about, scientists from the Hayden Planetarium there.
Neil deGrasse Tyson, yes.
And we're not here to bash him, because I met the brother. We spoke, and he kind of let me down with certain things when I asked him about Gabriel Aibo and his grand unified theory. But we were backstage at BAM. A friend of mine who was doing security let me in to ask him a question, and I did. So, but he kind of brushed me off and had to run. It was crazy.
Yeah.
But go ahead.
Well, what do you want me to say about him, or say about what he said? Because I didn't watch the video. I mean, I've watched Neil deGrasse.
I know.
And for those who want to see me debate, I mean, I debated his counterpart. His counterpart is Bill Nye.
Oh, you debated Bill Nye? I didn't know that. Wait a minute.
I debated Bill Nye on his show. So if anyone wants to check that out, it's on Netflix. Bill Nye Saves the World, episode 11, season 1.
Oh, wow. Wow. Okay, I didn't know that.
I've dealt with these guys before. So, I mean, what would you like me to
well,
tackle?
The guy said, the person said, for clarity, to clarify, I'm talking about the literal planet Uranus.
Well, Uranus is a great planet to study, so I would love to hear more that they have to share about that. But what were you going to ask me about Neil deGrasse Tyson and other things?
I watch him regularly, and Dr. Valentine don't like him at all. It's interesting. Both of them are Libras, which is interesting to me. And he said, because I tried to set up a debate, a conversation between those two years ago, and Neil kind of declined on his own. Mm-hmm. And I know he studied a lot of people. He does, and then he'll put it off. But he's out there saying what he's saying, but he's not, I wouldn't consider him a peer, because if you're not peer reviewing amongst the peers of astrologers, how can you speak about astrology if you're not really that invested in it, like many, like yourself and other people, Raul or somebody else that might be invested in it? How can you just shun a whole science? What do you feel about him doing that? And millions of people are watching him, and people are trying to agree with him, but that's what I've seen, over the years. And that's why I send it to you. I've sent it to Raku. And Raku said to me straight up, he said, how can a man that is not involved or inundated into science talk about it, from his lame perspective? That's basically what he said. But I know Ra got a few choice words that can come with it too. So
yeah. We can always debate on, but not. We can always depend on my Scorpio brother to deliver it a certain way. Yeah, I appreciate that about Raku.
Yeah, he's October Scorpio.
Yeah. So here's what I would say. I mean, it's pretty much the same thing. They don't study astrology, which you could say, all right, do they have to? Well, if you're going to critique something, this is how you mentioned earlier in the show that I started off as a skeptic. And I started off as a skeptic because I just didn't understand how it could be plausible at all. But what being an African American studies told me is I can't just depend on other people's research, because other people's research have said crazy things, like we have drapetomania when we want to run away from enslavement, right? And so I'm like, well, I'm not going to go by what people have said related to science or other people's research. I wanted to at least look at it on my own. And the thing that I've observed about skeptics, and I call them often lazy skeptics, is that they don't do that research on their own. And even if they had basic research, they would know that we don't base our work just on 12 signs. We look at it related to the planets. There was a New York Times article that was out that has people kind of like scrambling. We have never literally based our work on the actual constellations. Why? Because the constellations are all different sizes. Even folks who subscribe to the sidereal aspect of the zodiac, they literally are not tied to the constellations. People like to say that, but it's an error. They're tied to particular fixed stars. So, for instance, the Vedic system, well, many Vedic astrologers will tie it to a particular star that we call in the West Spica. They will call it Chitra. And so they do then from that particular star, which is at 0 degrees Libra, then they will cast 30 degrees forward towards Scorpio, 30 degrees, and then go all the way around the zodiac. But it's not aligned with a particular constellation. Because Chitra, or Spica, is pretty much toward the middle of the constellation Virgo. So it's not even literally in what we call Libra, the constellation Libra. So, there's many people who have gone to the sidereal not fully understanding how the sidereal zodiac actually works.
Right.
They just say like, well, we actually use the constellations. I'm like, no, you don't. You use the approximation of the constellations, just like the tropical zodiac does. And the tropical zodiac looks at things in relation to, like as I was talking about before, the sun's position to 4 positions: at the equator, at the vernal equinox or the autumnal equinox, and then along the Tropic of Cancer in the northern hemisphere and the Tropic of Capricorn in the southern hemisphere. That's it. And then its relationship between those points. That's all it does. It's a different orientation. Not saying one is better than the other, but we have to be honest about where it is. Now, with a basic fact like that,
right,
if these skeptics actually studied astrology, they would know that. But they don't know that, so they're caught up in a literalism. And Neil deGrasse Tyson is definitively caught up in a literalism. Like, what do you mean by that? This is the man who goes like, well, Star Wars can't be real because of such and such. Dude, have you not watched a movie before? Have you heard of sci-fi? A suspension of disbelief? Yeah, we're not idiots. We know it's not literal. And they get into the literalism like, well, love isn't real. It's really just the, matter of oxytocin and, the recent release of serotonin in your, say that to your girlfriend. Is that why you're single?
He's married too.
Is he married?
He's married. Yes, he's married. He's married.
Oh, okay. Because we never hear much about his wife. We did hear about,
I mention every now and then, but yeah, he's married. He's married. He's married.
Right.
He almost went through a divorce because of that incident he had with another woman.
You know what I'm talking about? Yeah. So
right. So
I'm sure he doesn't say that to his wife. Like, well, yes, I've acquired a predilection for your presence because of the presence of oxytocin, and then the serotonin channels that have been created by virtue of our proximity to each other. He doesn't say that. He'll say, I love you.
Exactly. But but Sam, let me say, pardon me, I don't want to cut your wisdom. I know you get in. Again, family, please, let me, y'all got to go to his website if you want to book a consultation, if you want to learn. He got classes. He has all of that going on. He has an Instagram also. His email, if you want to talk to him more, and email him, not debate, email, because I know people are something else. But people are really respecting the brothers, respecting what I got. I'm broadcasting on Instagram also and on Facebook, so
Oh,
I'm not just
okay.
on YouTube.
All right.
So I'll make people.
I see. I'm looking at YouTube, and I see.
I'm broadcasting all over the place. Sam, Neil, Mr. Tyson also says that we're made out of stardust, but we can't. Why can't we have a connection to the micro? And how come the macro and the microcosmic can't have a connection if we are so-called quote unquote
Absolutely.
stardust? What? Come on, that's what gets me confused when he says certain things.
Well, because they believe, when I say they,
right?
Neil. Okay, I'll just say it. I mean, I won't just say it related to Neil deGrasse Tyson because, like I said, I debated Bill Nye, and there are other skeptics too.
Mm-hmm.
There's a way in which Europe, particularly from its age of enlightenment, participated in a broad disenchantment of the cosmos. Richard Tarnas talks about this in his book, Cosmos and Psyche. And this disenchantment that they have really has robbed it of life and consciousness. So the one conundrum that I always have with these skeptics is, well, how do you have consciousness and believe in your consciousness, but you don't believe in a conscious cosmos? Then what the hell are you?
Good question.
And I think that is where we have an issue, where we can recognize we are made of the same stuff, but we make an exceptionalism to ourselves without recognizing that we are participating in a cosmos that's equally alive, with things alive around us and things that we can't see. But this is part of their disenchanted cosmos, largely as crafted by Europeans, and then many of us can buy into it.
Right. And of course, he works for the Hayden Planetarium. Of course, there's a script going on over there. There's definitely a script. I can see. And everybody that he brings on with Chuck and the whole crew, it's a whole script from England all the way to America, all over the world.
Yeah, and they particularly are annoyed with astrologers. I think it's sometimes petty because I think they're often confused with astrologers. Right? They're at a party. Yes, I'm an astronomer. I'm an astronomer. Oh, can you tell what sign I am? Listen, I said astronomer. I look at the stars. Right. I'm a Scorpio. Do you know anything about Scorpio? So this pisses them off. So they particularly have, a grist to a grind against astrologers, I think, for some of those reasons.
But most of them know the truth that it was once connected. If not all of them, know it.
They do, but they think now we've surpassed it. They think it, astrology was astronomy in its infancy, and now we left it behind. I mean, and this is kind of going back to that point about New Age.
Yeah.
There's this idea that is deeply seated in European Western thought that they are the maturation of humankind. Let me give you a very simple example for people to, speaking of wake up to.
Right.
Even when we say the West, right, and we say Europe, first let's go back to myth. The myth is that Europa was a Phoenician princess, and Phoenicia extended from what we now call, around Turkey down into Libya and other parts of North Africa. Yeah. Zeus takes on the form of a white bull and abducts her and rapes her, but takes her into the land of the setting sun, into the West.
Right.
Notice what I said. Her name was Europa. This becomes the pattern, or we could say the idea of Europe.
Yes.
The land of the setting sun. Yeah. Then Europe later, and this is later in their history. This is not, they didn't start off as Europe because they were all just a bunch of nation states and even more territories for most of their history, not up until it didn't consolidate into the idea of Europe until they started conquering other places. And they needed to have a collective identity. And that came more, like we could say, around the 1600s. Anyway, so they come up with this idea of Europe. And they also come up with the idea, well, this is the West. And what becomes the West is always debatable, because if Russia like steps out of line, it's like, oh, they're not part of us, they're Eastern. You know, and when Russia behaves, it's like, okay, they're part of the West, Moscow, right? That's the dance of history. You're like, okay, so what's the big deal? The sun rises in the East and then sets in the West. So what's given to the East is this, well, we'll give you credit for originating things, but we've perfected them. We're the height of human history. We're the West. And just like the setting sun, we've come to the maturation of humankind. And this is their whole thought.
That's true.
And so a good measure of their thinking is literally centered on this conception of themselves as the apex of human civilization. And so I don't even say white supremacy anymore. I call it what it is: imperialism and the history of imperialism.
Yeah.
It's an empire. You're another empire that also will fall, like all empires have fallen, you know.
Yeah.
So, but they want to make an exceptionalism for themselves, which starts in everything they name: the West, Europe, all these different things. And so, yeah, go on.
I want you to go back to Europe, because one of the scholars that I studied years ago was J.A. Rogers.
Yeah.
If you remember. What do you think about the Grimaldis of Europe? And
what do I think of what?
The Grimaldis of Europe. Who do you think they were? Because they said it was melanated people that was there for 45,000 years. That's what he said.
I haven't read J.A. in a long time, but I think that's true. I mean, one thing that we often find in European history, we talked about the Moorish influence.
Yeah.
We talked about, and the conceptions of race and the idea of race changes depending on which European we're talking about. So we're talking about the Portuguese and, you know, some measure of the Spaniards. They would have a spectrum related to race that's very different than how the English might. English, like, okay, that became like more American law. If you have one drop of it in you, you're black. That's it. You're out. Whereas it wasn't as simple as that. And even in Italy, you know, you go to Sicily, you know, you can meet people like, well, you're darker than some people in my family, you know, in terms of their complexion and hair type. And that's true around the world. You know, when we talk about Indians, I mean, in India, I'm not talking about indigenous Americans or indigenous folks. I'm not going to call them Americans, but indigenous folk in America. But in India, I've been to South, I've been all through India, and I've been to South India. Dravidian culture, which is deeply influenced by African culture, or, you know, more having a reciprocal symbiotic relationship. I saw people there, you know, and stayed with people who were darker than everyone in my family, with different and hair like us.
Right.
So we definitely have influenced everyone everywhere. So I'm not surprised by the Grimaldis in terms of that. It's even believed that Beethoven may have been of mixed heritage. And like I said, different sets of people, like Russians are far, you know, in general now, far more cool about, you know, and honoring Pushkin, who was definitely of African descent, than any other European might have been. They're like, oh yeah, we love Pushkin, blah, blah, blah. And, you know, his literature is, you know, foundation for us in terms of, you know, but so there's been different scales of racialized thinking and racism.
Right. And people that are just tuning in, somebody just said something in the chat. They said, what scares me is retrograde. I know nothing might be a sign behind need counsel. well, you know, since you want to say retrograde, consciously, please tell people and break it down about the retrograde, whether it's Mercury, but all planets retrograde. Is that correct?
No, and the sun and moon do not retrograde, right?
Interesting you said that, because somebody said the sun retrogrades, but it's every 150 years.
In relation, okay, this may be true. They can say it retrogrades in relation to another star, but in relation to the movement through the zodiac, in our solar system, it does not retrograde.
Okay.
So
makes sense.
It is believed that the sun does orbit around another star.
Yes.
And they believe that star is Sirius.
Mm.
So that could have some element of truth. But in terms of the whole other thing, so all the other planets do retrograde at different cycles, going from Mercury, and technically we call the sun and the moon luminaries. Whereas, Mercury onward, they do retrograde, and Mercury does it about 3 times a year, and that's why it wigs people out. It can do it 4 times, but generally 3 times. And a retrograde just means, and this is great in English because we kind of draw on Latin for this, it's for using all the words to rewind, to review, to reflect. And what's happening when a planet is retrograde, especially Venus or Mercury, it's going toward a rebirth. It's completed its journey through the zodiac, especially Mercury, because it only takes 88 days to get through the zodiac.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's going toward a rebirth, a new moon. And so what that means as we go toward, let's say, a Mercury retrograde, which we'll have, I believe, next month, is more so where we have a time to review, reflect, renew how we do things related to Mercury. And Mercury deals with 3 comms: communication, commerce, and commuting. So we have a chance to revise how we might do 1 or 3 of those things. So an example I might give you, and I love the Key and Peele skit where the 2 brothers are communicating, but then they're really miscommunicating because they can't get each other's tone and they're communicating by text.
I remember that.
And so what can happen, if you're communicating with someone, you're like, oh, would you like to have a drink? And, someone writes back like, oh, is that your way of trying to pacify me? Well, it might be then time to stop texting and get on the phone or arrange to meet in person. This is where you have to change up how you do things. A lot of people get into thinking cautions or being aware means you have to beware. And it's not true. Oh, I can't sign a lease during a retrograde. No, it means that you should carefully review your lease before you sign it, because if you just kind of do your usual thing, like, oh, it's a standard lease, you might discover like, oh yeah, and you have to be in the house by 10. Wait, why is that in the lease? And you didn't know that. It also can be a chance to review, with Mercury retrograde specifically, review things and maybe even change them. So for instance, it could be time to review your lease or your agreement, your contract related to work. I'm going to give a European example. The Beatles signed their initial contract during a Mercury retrograde. They got a new agent who reviewed their contract and then said, this is bogus, we need to change it. And they got a better contract, and now we know the Beatles today. Well, many of us, right? So it's more a way in which you can have a shifting, and you could be participatory rather than just a victim.
Right.
And that's true for many of the others as well.
And what's so funny, brother? Anybody, it's now 9:04. I'm not going to keep my brother for long. I know we started a little because of delays, and we had some technical difficulties. And today is a 14-day, which is a 5/5 is a Mercury day number.
Well called. I was trying to look at it astrologically, but numerologically.
I'm going to go to the numbers and see where I'm at.
The number was right there. The numbers was right there. The numbers don't lie.
I came to my mind because I wish my son, my bonus son, a happy birthday, and I wished him a happy birthday today. Today's his birthday. Today is Usher's birthday too. So big up to them.
And George Floyd. I mentioned George Floyd.
George Floyd. That's right. Today's George Floyd's birthday. Somebody said some crazy stuff about George Floyd. He says, let me go back to that question. Somebody said, because when you mentioned George Floyd, it says, said, how would you feel if George Floyd did that to your pregnant sister, mother, and daughter? Would you still honor him? What did he do? I don't know. I don't know the history of George Floyd like that.
I think there's some measure or call that he had some aspect of abuse.
Oh, okay. They went and dig that up.
Yeah, we could talk about that right quick. I mean, one thing that's significant about George Floyd is that speaking, and this brother or I hope it's a brother, forgive me if I'm quote unquote misgendering you, is that when he passed away, when he was killed, Uranus was at 8 degrees Taurus. And it was the same degree as when Crispus Attucks was shot.
Whoa.
The same exact degree, almost to the minute. And I've always taken that as a clarion call. And a lot of people think like, well, Black Lives Matter is dead. The revolution didn't die. The American Revolution didn't die when Crispus Attucks died. It actually became something, that grew larger. Related to his life, some people say like it was on fentanyl, he was this, blah, blah, blah. Some of that could be true. I'm not going to deny it. I don't know enough about the man. I know some things. I know Candace Owens has made even a film about it. And we could talk about Candace another time. But she's made a film, or never talk about her, but she's made a film about it, in terms of pointing out his flaws. And this can be true for so many of us, right? Maybe not at the same level of severity, but there is no question that he died unjustly. And that no matter how, to that point, if he was abusive, did he deserve to be killed at the hands of a police officer using such brutal force?
Right.
That's not for that police officer to do. And so I think that's the critical question.
Right.
And we also have to recognize that this is what folks do. Anybody, Philandro Castile, Tamir Rice, anybody, or even Trayvon Martin, anyone who's killed, then we start digging up, well, they had a record. Michael Brown had a record. Did you know that? Blah, blah, blah. And rather than dealing with, was this person who, had these things happening to him deserving of what happened to him? No. Because these are not the questions that we ask or even go into when it's often white folk. Well, George W. Bush had a record, but he still became president, right? Bill Clinton was impeached by one house, but still stayed on as president, right? There's all these inconsistencies and incongruencies when it comes to us, or like even Charlie Kirk, Charlie Kirk. I'm not going to talk about his assassination and anything else, but I am going to talk about he had the nerve to say, well, Dr. King was not a good man, right? We knew he had his picadillos, and we knew that he had his, even when he was alive, people knew he had his dalliances. Are we justifying it? Are we excusing it? No. But was he perfect? No. But did he die in honor and service of his people? Absolutely.
Right.
So we have to be careful of really decrying people who have been murdered. We don't necessarily have to just say like, well, he was heroic like Nat Turner. No, but he was a victim of a violence that is still happening to us.
I think the same person said, I'm a 350-year-old African American on both sides as far as we trace. Hopefully that doesn't interfere with the counsel with you later offline. I guess you're going to contact that person. I'm glad you please contact Samuel if you want to do any consultation with him.
Yeah, and I wouldn't, I'm not holding that against the brother. I just disagree, right? Yes, he reportedly did, we're talking about George Floyd, did an awful thing. But and no one's like, when I honor him with a birthday, it's honoring, that he still deserved a chance to make amends. This is kind of one of the things that I really challenge about cancel culture. Are we more about calling people in, or just calling people out?
Mm.
Are we just going to, when someone breaks the law and even, has gone beyond judgment,
Yes.
or even faced judgment and time,
Right.
where's the place of reckoning and forgiveness and the place of reconciliation? And for that, I often think about Mike Tyson. Now,
Mhm.
Mike Tyson did time for his
Yes.
rape. Now, I don't know if he did any reconstitution or any restitution. Sorry, that's the word. He didn't. I don't know if he did any restitution to Desiree, the person he has been accused of raping. But I mean, he did his time, and I wonder, well, what more do we want from him? People are like, well, he's a rapist. Okay, that's true. And so when someone does time, how long do we punish them? Especially when they are released. Is that the fault of the person or how we deal with our justice system?
Mm. Mm. Right.
And
Right.
what are we willing to do to talk about our justice system? Whether that's Harvey Weinstein, whether that is Mike Tyson, or any of the folks. Michael Vick,
P. Diddy.
P. Diddy.
He's there now.
And now I think that's twofold. By the way, just to be clear, I think.
Yeah.
I don't know how sorry P. Diddy is. I mean, I don't know the man. I don't know him. We
met
don't
him.
know. You probably met him.
I met him once.
I don't know how sorry he is, but we know that he did some patently offensive and dark things.
Yes.
So that's one part of the issue. But the other part of the issue is like, okay, when he's done his time, when he's done 5 years, 4 more years,
Yeah.
when he's done his 4 more years, and let's say he actually has done some measure of restitution, what if he has also done some measure of repentance to people and about the harm he's caused? Are we still going to cancel him?
Mm.
And that's a genuine question, because I talk to some sisters, and especially, and we'll say like, no, fuck him, he's dead to me. Okay. But then it becomes like, well, protect Candace Owens. What?
Mm.
I'm like, that chick who has spent coddling white people for what? How many years? Last 5-10 years she's been on the scene.
She just apologized to Minister Farrakhan, right?
No, I didn't know that.
Well, she apologized for what she said about Minister Farrakhan being a hate monger and all that, because she said she was told to do it. Big up to Dana and Judge Joe Brown that pulled that out and played the clip. Big up to those.
I mean, maybe there's some progress, but she spent all those years
all the time. Yes, exactly.
Denigrating, and not recognizing the dangers and the horrors of Zionism. I'm not saying Jews, Zionism.
Right. I think,
that also is something that Minister Farrakhan talked about. People labeled him as, like you said, a hate monger and a hater of Jews. I remember the quote that people misconstrue, and you probably do too, because maybe you were in the nation at the time. He said, any religion that participates in, I think, the denigration of another people is a gutter religion. That's what he said. Because I had to go listen to what the man said.
Exactly.
And this is before we had the web, so you have to go look up things, right? I was like, oh, I was like, that's, and then so they would say he called Judaism a gutter religion. I'm like, that's not what he said. So I think it becomes important to really be circumspect.
And
speaking about consciousness.
I was there also with Khalid, Dr. Khalid Muhammad. So that was my brother.
Yeah, may he rest in peace.
Matter of fact, when I if you look on Montreal, Canada, Khalid in Montreal, I was one of the people that produced that in Montreal, Canada. Him in Montreal at that time in the 90s. Before I let you go, because I got at least 2 more questions. As far as health is concerned, how and big up. Let me go back. Big up to Nick Cannon, born the same day as Priestess Yendez. Nick Cannon, who's created not cancel culture but council culture on his YouTube channel. because he knows he's been diagnosed as being a narcissist. A diagnosis of being a narcissist. That's a big word that's being thrown around all over the world, you know. But going to medical astrology, how does Sam relate to medical astrology? Have you tried? Have you studied that also, and how people can recognize certain conditions that they can attract, that can be attracted to them if they pay attention through medical astrology?
Yes, cursorily. I mean, I think when I say cursorily, I am a, I have some specific levels of expertise. And medical astrology is one branch of astrology that requires a good measure of expertise and study. So it's like saying, you're a doctor, I'm a doctor, let's say in that sense, and then there's a gastroenterologist, right?
Right.
And so I'm not that kind of guy, in terms of the full scope of medical astrology. But yes, there are some things that you can see related to someone's chart, whether they're going into particular aspects of health. If certain things that are not allowed to be expressed in their chart can develop into other particular diseases, including cancer. And I have talked to folks about things like that, but to get like more of an in-depth, like if you have an ongoing critical condition, not even just critical, but what's the word? When it's been long lasting. This is
Terminal.
where you not even terminal, because that implies
Chronic.
like you
Is it chronic?
chronic. Thank you. That's the word I was looking for. If you have more of a chronic condition, this is where you benefit from seeing a medical astrologer. And in our community, among the people I might recommend are two people of color that I
Yes.
can say. One is Cameron Allen, Cameron Allen.
Yes.
You can look him up, astrologer. And the
Yes.
other one is Michael Bryan. He spells his name differently. So Mychal. Both of these
Right.
are brothers, and both of them have a specialization related to medical astrology.
Big up to that. Make sure y'all rewind that and get those names. Dr. Africa used to teach on medical astrology also.
Yeah.
And it's in his book actually, which is interesting. And I have a few books on it. But my brother, I love having you here all the time, man. You just bring, I always tell people like you make my numerovation better because I
Yeah.
got books I study. I gotta study. I gotta research. I gotta cross reference because this this time in our lives, man, people are not cross referencing, not looking up things, not even Google is all right, but you still got to cross reference Google. You got to really double check on, all these
Yeah,
things a lot.
especially in this age of AI. AI
Yes.
lies.
Yes.
It
I noticed
lies
that.
and just gets facts just wrong.
I noticed that with even the numbers, I'm like, what the hell? We got
Yeah.
crazy.
And then people, misquote things, or they're not checking. They don't know where to check.
How do you deal with that? How do you deal with that now? Because people think that AI is going to replace astrologers and mirages, everybody. I'm like, really? Me and Lloyd said, nah, that's crazy. They don't have the soul and the spirit that we have to offer with it.
Along with the intuition. I
Intuition and
also
that.
think there's a couple different levels. Can it be useful as prompting thought?
Yeah.
It seems it's a language-based model. So can it help refine language? Sure. I think it can. But can it replace? No. And I think what we should be thinking about is the cost related to having this technology.
Talk about
There are gallons of water that's used, every time you deal with one of these prompts. And what we are contending with is going toward a water shortage. And so are we decreasing the likelihood of a better future for ourselves and our children in order to have this novelty of AI?
that's deep.
And like, and and maybe we might find other energy sources that help cool these massive farms that are required to keep these computers and keep these terminals. But right now, it just requires an immense amount of energy, an immense amount of cooling and water to kind of keep them at a certain level of stasis. And so, so it's more of an environmental issue.
Yeah.
And like right now, it's fun. We've had 2-3 years maybe of it now. As more and more folks are using it, and more businesses are relying on them. Like, oh, okay. So when your kids can't drink, or we're fighting over water, it's going to be more of an elite who will have to, I guess, gather and greedily deal with these resources, and other folks are scrambling. And some of this is already, go on.
I think that's where I think Moses West. You ever heard of the brother that gets the water from the atmosphere and pulls it all? A machine that draws all the water.
No,
in.
I haven't heard of him. No.
I'll send you his link on it. Say he's helping out the Maroon town in Jamaica right now, getting water out of the atmosphere, and it converts it right into water immediately and gives you drinkable water. Moses West, his name is. He's on Instagram. I'll send you his link. But that's how the engineers like him, they already try to destroy one of his machines and all that kind of stuff. I mean, they're really coming after him because he knows how to draw the water from out of the air and convert it to drinkable water immediately. With his machine, one of those engineers from out of the military that retired and started building this thing, and now he has a great machine. Just took it to Jamaica the other day, and he's going to take it to a few other countries as long as you're willing to get it over there. But it's funny, the abbreviation AI adds up to a water number, which is interesting in numerology, and it adds up to a fire number in the other system of numerology. So I understand the heating of it now, but the need of water on the other side, where you just pointed. And so I'm like, wait a minute. And my mind just went there. Not the breaking down of the whole word. I broke down that whole word on my class one time, and I broke down the whole word and the vibration of the word. But AI I had to teach something at Tassili Ma'at's place in Georgia. And I broke down what those letters just mean, because we constantly saying it. So it's becoming part of the algorithm that we're saying. And those forces have the fire and the water energy. So when you just said this, and I heard it before, but I wasn't sure. And then when you confirmed it, I said, oh. And then I said, man. Everything is spiritual also, metaphysics on the other side. Something is happening behind in the esoteric world behind AI also. Something is happening. And we're not looking that deep.
Well, yeah. And, there's a plan.
Yes.
I mean, the plan, and I'm not just talking about, the Illuminati. It's even, it's more the technocrats. It's the tech bros who spelled out. They you could just go to Elon Musk's Twitter page, and you can see he envisions humanity in service of technology, that the technology is going toward not this quote unquote sentience or the idea of the singularity, but there's this vision that machine becomes the apex related to evolution on this planet, which sounds crazy to me. It's crazy to me because what we should be talking about is life as the apex for civilization, or the apex of evolution. And life, it's not just human life, but life itself on this planet. And machines are not about life, they're about efficiency. So that's the thing that we need to, and the tech bros have been very clear about this. This is why, whether, they're talking about government a certain way. It's like government isn't necessarily, we think government should be built to be efficient, but the reason why we have redundancies I don't mean the British redundancies, but more so kind of, the bureaucracy is more so to kind of keep people honest. The more bureaucracy you have, to some degree, not to, an extreme degree, but to some degree, the more that you can stave off corruption.
Right.
Because if you have, one person who handles this and that and blah, 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 then this is where you have, channels, and it's easier channels toward corruption.
Right. my brother.
Yeah. Well, anyway,
My brother,
thank you for
I
showcasing.
appreciate you, brother. Of course, this is your website up here, and our family, please, please, please support our brother. He's been doing it for a long time, bro. And I like I said, I respect his astrology and his information and his depth that he goes. Even if you're in a class with him, you can hear it. You can hear it all, and you could tell the brother's still studying. He never stops studying. That's one thing I like. You're always curious. I'm curious also. Like curious. I'm always curious.
That's why you stayed young. And I started a class now, or I will be starting class November 1st. If anyone's an absolute beginner and wants to learn astrology, I have a 6-week course that I have just started. And if you go to the website and go up, more so,
right,
and you go to learn astrology. Yeah,
right here. Yes.
No, go where it says learn astrology at the very top of the menu, and did you go to beginner to advanced classes?
Okay, beginner to advanced. Okay, there it is.
Right there you go. I started a class that's for absolute beginners. It's 6 weeks, so it's just a short time frame. It's recorded. It's on Zoom. You can do it from anywhere in the world. And so if anyone's interested in learning astrology, more so from the ground up, hit me up.
Beautiful, 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 beautiful. Family, go to the website. This brother is extraordinary, and he makes it real simple. He keeps it simple. Believe me. He can throw out the words, but he keeps it simple. You know what I'm saying? Somebody saying something in the chat. Well, we're about to close down. I know you're saying something. My brother, I love you.
Yeah.
What do you say? What do you say?
No, I don't. I'm looking at the YouTube chat and I don't see anything where people are. It's Tiggy Cam.
The code on how to use electricity. One of the first things they did was killing elephants for show and making the electric chair food for thought. Okay. Yeah, they take out a lot of things to do what they want to do to feel comfortable in this realm right now, man. People are doing a lot. But the ancestors are watching. I'm telling you right now, I'm not afraid of anything right now. Really, I know, I'm not getting caught up in their negative and whatever they're putting out there, bro, because we ain't leaving here alive. That's one thing I know.
Right.
Sam, we ain't leaving here alive. As long as we are connected to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in a higher level, that's where I'm focused on, brother. That's where my prayer, meditation.
That's good. Yeah, that's the way we got to go.
But I love it.
All right, brother. Well, thank you.
Thank you very much. Due to the technical difficulty, I'm doing it off my phone, but I'm here looking different ways. But I appreciate you, Sam. Thank you very much for coming on, my brother.
Thank you for having me. All right.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Wa alaikum salam.
All right. Thank you. That's my brother, man. Due to technical difficulties, I'm doing it on my phone, but yet still on my my channel here. And thank you for brother Sam for coming on. Like I said, today's consciousness from another perspective. And Sam is well-rounded. Brother Sam is well-rounded on so many levels. And again, it was him that showed me the way in regards to realizing there was a connection between astrology and astronomy. We did it at old Nicholas downtown Brooklyn. He brought. I think I better upload that lecture. If I still have it on DVD, I need to upload it and share it with him and make sure he has it in his files too. And then we can make that happen. Because it was a very good lecture. And I think it is on YouTube, if I'm not mistaken. I think part of it is on YouTube. But family, Sam is someone, let me put his website back up there so y'all can see it in the chat. I'm gonna put it in the chat so y'all can actually see. Nobody wanted to come up and cam up and come and hang out with us. It's all good. I know y'all got a lot of other channels y'all can visit, but I'm glad for the little bit that came out and showed some love. I'm glad for the little bit that came out and showed some love, believe me. Because remember, my show is called King Simon Presents Only Quality People. And sometimes it's not a lot, because sometimes it takes just a little bit to make a difference. It takes a little bit to make a difference. Again, this is his information right here. This is information you can actually email him also. unlockastrology@gmail. His website is unlockastrology.com. He has classes for beginners and advanced. Also, You can go to his Instagram at SF Reynolds. SF Reynolds. You've seen him on the Nubia channel with Narrative with Karen Hunter, good friend of mine from WWRL Radio from back in the day. Check out my brother. He's very, very good at what he does. And he spoke about the age of Aquarius, that we're not exactly in it. Give it another 400 years, but things come in gradually. So you start feeling the effects of it gradually. And he didn't say that, but I know that's probably what it is. But feeling the effects in 400 years is quantum. You feeling the effects of it 400 years before we actually come into it. It's just like when the day comes, it turns into night, and the night turns into day. Sun comes in gradually, sun goes out gradually. So that's how the age of Aquarius, from I presume from his perspective, is coming in 400 years later. You know what I'm saying? So big up to him for that. I love those type of things, and it helps me to go study. I'll go research myself, and because like I said, family, that there are brothers out there and sisters out there that say we are in the age of Aquarius. That's it. We was in there from the 1500, and so I don't agree. And again, that's where peer review comes in. There are going to be metaphysical scientists that disagree with each other, just like the regular scientists disagree with each other. That's how these scientists are. This is how it is. They disagree, agree until proven wrong, until it becomes a theorem. It is what it is. All right. So I love it. I love it. I love it. I love that brother, man. Great brother, man. And I'm so proud of his journey and how he's been accomplishing great things and great feats. If you go to his website, you'll see a lot that he's done, a lot of the organization places that he's spoken and all that, a lot. And you got some recordings on there too, with him and Karen Hunter and all of that. As a matter of fact, here it is. I think. Let me show y'all. To show y'all, he ain't joking. I know I seen it up here earlier. Where is it at? Is it I'm trying to find out which page, but I can't find the page right this time. It's all right, but y'all go to the website. Y'all know about media. I think it's under media, videos and stuff. So big up to him. Well, he got different things here. He got astrology on YouTube. He also got a YouTube channel connected to his website. So when y'all get a chance, go to his website. Had a lot of fun, man. Have a lot of fun. And I love to learn. I'm a high school dropout, took my GED, got kicked out of 3 schools, but I love to learn. I read more than I read in school. I read more books, studied more things, and been in certain classes, continuing education classes, without even evidence of high school diploma and all that. So I learned from the streets of hard knocks, and still, as you can see, as you see my shelf, this is just one of my shelves. I got nothing but books and information. And then I have a whole garage full of stuff. I just lost like 1,500 books in storage from a miscommunication issue that happened with the family. But it's all good. It was time to release that before my birthday. And maybe that was it. That was December of last year. So right before my birthday. So family, thank y'all very much for coming on and spreading love. Make sure you support the channel. You can always go to Venmo. You can support the channel. You can donate to the channel via Venmo, the 2 PayPal, and also the Cash App. That's you can always donate if it meant anything to you while you're watching it or when you decide to watch the show. I will probably edit the technical difficulties in the YouTube editor. I'm probably going to edit that so we can go straight to the point instead of getting all caught up. All right. So family, have a great day, afternoon, or evening. Remember what Dr. B says. I forgive myself, my family, and others for imperfection, and I'm thankful for my life. And remember what Dr. Blair said. Please, universal creator, know in my heart that I love you. Please protect me and this planet on which I live now. Please open my mind, my spirit, and my soul to receive only truth and your love now. Family, one love, one aim, one destiny. Stay strong, stay beautiful, stay wonderful. And remember, I love you because I love me. Thank you very much. And thanks to Brother Sam again for coming through. Peace.